The last train through Black Hollow was never listed on any modern schedule, yet on certain quiet nights, when the fog settled low and the moon hung pale over the Appalachian ridges, people swore they could still hear it, a distant whistle, long and sorrowful, drifting through the trees like a memory that refused to rest. Tonight, as you settle into this peaceful ghost story to fall asleep, you are invited to ride that train, gently and safely, into a place where history whispers and the dead are never truly gone. I am Evelyn Blackwood, and you are listening to Midnight Murmurs Radio. Before the journey begins, allow yourself to grow comfortable. Let your body sink into the surface beneath you, support it and at ease. Take a slow breath in through your nose, filling your chest and belly, and then let it out gently through your mouth. With each breath, feel the weight of the day loosening its grip. Your shoulders soften. Your jaw unclenches. Your thoughts slow, like lanterns dimming one by one along a quiet platform. There is nowhere else you need to be. This story will carry you. Imagine now a small train station at the edge of a forgotten town. Black Hollow rests in a narrow valley, surrounded by dense forests and low, rolling hills that seem to press inward, as if guarding old secrets. The station is built of dark timber and stone, its sign weathered by decades of rain and coal smoke. No clock ticks here anymore, yet time feels oddly suspended, lingering between moments. The air smells faintly of iron, damp leaves, and cold earth. Long ago, in the early years of the 20th century, this hollow thrived. Coal trains thundered through day and night, carrying the labor of miners who carved their lives out of the mountain's bones. Immigrants from distant lands arrived with hopes folded into battered suitcases. The train was their lifeline, their promise of progress, their only way in or out. But progress, as history so often teaches, demanded a price. On nights like this one, the forest grows unnaturally still. Crickets fall silent. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. Then, from far beyond the curve of the tracks, comes the sound. A low vibration through the ground, felt more than heard. Steel wheels turn, a ghost of motion stirring the past awake. Picture yourself standing on the platform, wrapped in a heavy coat. A single lantern glows nearby, its light warm and golden, pushing back the shadows. You feel no fear here, only a gentle anticipation, like remembering a dream you once had. The fog thickens, curling around your ankles, softening the edges of the world. Out of that fog, that train begins to appear. Its engine is old, blackened by soot, yet polished as if cared for by unseen hands. Windows glow softly from within, not bright, but inviting. There is no conductor in sight, yet the doors open with a slow, patient sigh. Inside, the seats are upholstered in deep burgundy, worn smooth by generations of travelers. The air hums with quiet murmurs, layered and indistinct, like voices remembered rather than heard. As you step aboard, you sense the presence of others, though you do not turn to look. These passengers are calm, composed, their faces peaceful. They are not here to frighten you. They are here because this train is their story, looping endlessly through the place that shaped them. The last train through Black Hollow does not rush. It moves at the pace of reflection of acceptance, the whistle sounds again, softer now, and the train glides forward. Outside the window, the town slips past. You see wooden houses sagging with age, porches where lanterns once glowed on Halloween nights, when children laughed and the future still felt wide open. You sensed the weight of unspoken tragedies, of strikes broken, of tunnels collapsed, of choices made when there were no good options left. Yet within the carriage, there is a deep calm. The gentle rhythm of the wheels becomes a lullaby. Click, clack, click, clack. Each sound draws you further into relaxation, further into this guided sleep meditation wrapped in a bedtime story. You are safe. You are simply observing, floating between past and present, dot as the train disappears deeper into Black Hollow. The fog thickens once more, and the story begins to reveal its quiet truths. For now, let your breathing slow again. Let the motion carry you. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The train moves steadily, now carrying you deeper into the hollow, where the forest closes in and the pass grows heavier, yet never overwhelming. Outside your window, tall trees lean toward the tracks, their branches laced together like careful fingers guarding a sacred path. Moonlight filters through the mist, breaking into soft silver ribbons that drift across the glass. The rhythm of the wheels remains slow and reassuring, a gentle pulse that matches your breathing, guiding you further into rest. As the train rounds a gradual bend, the ruins of old industry appear. Rusted mining equipment lies half buried in ivy and fallen leaves. Wooden tipples sag under their own memories, and narrow-gauged rails vanish into collapsed tunnels swallowed by earth and time. This was once the heart of Black Hollow's promise, where men descended before dawn and returned after dark, faces marked by coal dust and quiet determination. Their stories linger here, not as cries of pain, but as echoes of endurance. Inside the carriage, the soft glow of the lamps reveals more details. Brass fixtures gleam faintly, etched with patterns worn smooth by countless hands. The air feels warmer now, scented with old paper, oiled wood, and something faintly sweet, like autumn apples left too long in a cellar. The murmurs around you ebb and flow, never sharp enough to distract, only present enough to remind you that you are not alone. You sense that each passenger carries a fragment of Black Hollow within them, a school teacher who once waited for letters that never arrived, a miner who dreamed of buying land beyond the mountains, a child who pressed her face to this very window, watching fireflies dance as the train carried her home. Their lives ended, as all lives do, but their attachments bound them gently to this place, to this endless, peaceful passage. The train slows near a forgotten stop, marked only by a crumbling stone platform and a sign with letters worn away by rain. No one boards, yet the doors open briefly, as if acknowledging those who once stood there, hopeful and uncertain. In the distance, you hear the faint sound of music, perhaps a fiddle from a long-ago festival, drifting through the trees. It is Columbus Day, early in the town's history, when flags were hung and speeches echoed off the hills, celebrating discovery while quietly ignoring the costs paid by others. History here is layered, complicated, never shouting, only whispering. As the doors close, the train resumes its gentle forward motion. The hollow grows darker, but never threatening. Fireflies appear along the tracks, glowing softly, rising and falling in slow, deliberate patterns. They remind you of lanterns carried by miners at shift change, tiny points of light pushing back the dark, one careful step at a time. You feel a subtle shift in the air, a moment where the boundary between then and now thins. The whispers grow clearer, not louder, but more focused. You sense regret, yes, but also forgiveness. The ghosts of Black Hollow are not trapped by anger. They remain because they choose to remember, to ensure their stories are not lost to silence. The train crosses a wooden trestle high above a narrow river. Water glimmers far below, black and glassy, reflecting the stars like scattered coins. Long ago, a flood surged through this valley, sweeping away homes and lives in a single night. The town rebuilt, though something essential was never fully restored. As you glide over the trestle, there is no fear, only respect for the power of nature and the fragility of human plans. Inside the carriage, the lights dim slightly, encouraging rest. Your eyelids feel heavier now, your thoughts slower and softer. This relaxing story is doing its quiet work, guiding you deeper into calm. You are drifting not toward an ending, but toward understanding. Ahead, the engine's headlamp cuts through the fog, revealing a stretch of track that curves sharply into darkness. The whistle sounds again, low and mournful, but also comforting, like a lullaby sung by the mountain itself. The last train through Black Hollow continues on, carrying memory, history, and gentle spirits through the night. As the scene settles, allow your breathing to slow once more. Feel the steady motion beneath you, the safety of this journey. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Asterisk the train glides onward, its motion so smooth you barely feel the passing of time. The deeper it travels into Black Hollow, the quieter the world becomes, as if sound itself has learned to move gently here. Even the whistle, when it calls out, does so with restraint. A low note that fades quickly into the hills. Inside the carriage, the steady breathing of unseen passengers blends with the rhythm of the rails, creating a soft, hypnotic harmony beyond the windows. The forest opens briefly to reveal a wide clearing. Moonlight spills across the land, illuminating the remains of what was once the town's heart. You see the outline of a grand hall, its roof long collapsed, its walls traced with vines and moss. This was where dances were held, where Halloween lanterns once glowed and laughter spilled out into the night. People gathered here to forget, for a few precious hours, the weight of labor and loss. The memory of joy lingers in the air, faint but persistent. The train slows again, almost imperceptibly, as if honoring the ground it passes. You sense a subtle shift among the passengers, the murmurs quiet, replaced by a shared stillness. This is a place of decision, where the path of Black Hollow changed forever. Long ago, a fire began in one of the nearby mines, deep underground. It smoldered unseen for days, feeding on coal seams and timber supports. When it finally broke through to the surface, it did so with terrifying speed. Smoke poured from the earth itself, and the ground grew warm beneath people's feet. The mine owners delayed evacuation, fearing lost profits more than human lives. Trains continued to run, carrying coal out. Even as danger crept closer on T's train, the story is not told with screams or chaos. Instead, you feel it as a deep, collective sorrow, a heaviness that settles briefly in your chest before easing again. The ghosts here do not accuse. They remember outside. You glimpse a mine entrance, now sealed by stone and time. A single lantern hangs nearby, glowing steadily, though no one tends it. Its light does not flicker. It simply remains, a quiet promise that those who entered were not forgotten. As the train passes, the lantern's glow reflects in the windows, washing the carriage in warm amber light. Within that light, faces become faintly visible, calm expressions, gentle eyes. These are the miners who chose to stay, who believed reassurances that everything would be fine. Their lives ended in darkness, yet here, on this endless journey, they are bathed in softness. The train gives them what the world once did not: patience, dignity, peace. The track curves again, leading the train through a narrow cut in the hillside. Rock walls rise on either side, close enough to feel, yet the passage is smooth and water trickles down the stone, catching moonlight like tiny stars. The sound is soothing, almost musical, blending with the click and clack of the rails. You notice how your own body feels now, heavier, warmer, more relaxed. This bedtime story, this guided sleep meditation, is wrapping around you like a familiar blanket. Thoughts drift in and out without urgency. There is nothing to solve here, nothing to fear. That train emerges from the cut into another stretch of forest, darker than before. Shadows gather beneath the trees, but they do not move toward you. They remain at a respectful distance, content to observe. Somewhere deep in the woods, an owl calls once, then falls silent. This part of Black Hollow is rarely seen by the living. It is where the town's unspoken truths settled, where the consequences of past choices took root. Yet, even the atmosphere is calm. Acceptance has softened every edge. The engine's light reveals an old signal ahead, its arm forever stuck in the caution position. The train slows, acknowledging a warning that came too late for so many. It does not stop. It continues, steady and unafraid, carrying its passengers beyond regret. As the signal slips past and fades into the fog, the carriage grows quieter still. The lamps dim further, encouraging rest. The ghosts settle into their seats, content to ride a little longer. Let your breathing follow the rhythm of the train. In and out, slow and easy. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The train continues its unhurried journey, and with each mile, the hollow seems to breathe more slowly, as if the land itself is resting alongside you. The wheels hum softly beneath the carriage, a sound so familiar and gentle that it begins to blur into silence. Outside, the forest thins, opening into a broad meadow washed in pale moonlight. Low mist drifts across the grass, curling and uncurling like a living thing, calm and untroubled. In the center of the meadow, faint shapes begin to appear. At first, they are only suggestions, shadows stitched together by memory. Then, gradually, they take form. Wooden booths line a dirt path. Paper lanterns hang from strings, glowing in warm shades of orange and gold. You are passing through the echo of an old festival night, one that returned every autumn when the air grew crisp and the leaves turned copper and red. Halloween in Black Hollow was never loud or frightening. It was a night of quiet traditions. Children carved pumpkins with careful hands. Families gathered to share simple food and stories passed down through generations. For a few hours, the hardships of the year were set aside, and the town allowed itself to feel whole. As the train rolls past, you can almost hear the soft laughter, the shuffle of feet on dry leaves, the murmur of neighbors greeting one another by name. The passengers in the carriage seem to lean subtly toward the windows, drawn by these gentle memories. Some of them were children then. Some were parents, watching from the edges, proud and tired. Their faces remain peaceful, illuminated by the reflected glow of lanterns that no longer truly exists. This is how Black Hollow remembers itself at its best. The train does not stop, but it slows, honoring the moment. You notice a small parade forming along the meadow path. People walk with candles cupped in their hands, flames steady despite the night air. They are not costumes meant to frighten, but simple masks and cloaks, symbols of the thin veil between worlds. Long before modern celebrations, this ritual was meant to acknowledge those who had passed, inviting them to walk briefly among the living, not in fear, but in respect. As the last lanterns fade behind you, the meadow dissolves back into mist. The forest returns, denser now, its shadows deeper yet still calm. A sense of quiet gratitude settles in the carriage, as though the ghosts have been reminded of warmth they once knew. The train begins a gentle descent, following the curve of the land toward the river valley. Water appears again, wider this time, flowing slow and dark beneath the trees. On its banks stand the remains of old homes, foundations marked by stone and memory. These were the houses claimed by the flood, their occupants forced to choose between leaving and starting over, or staying and risking everything. Money style. Money style. Many paid the price. You feel the weight of that choice, but it does not press heavily. It simply exists, acknowledged at last. The ghosts here are not bound by bitterness. Time has smoothed their sorrow into something quieter, something easier to carry. Inside the carriage, the lights dim until they are little more than embers. The train's motion becomes almost dreamlike. You may find your thoughts drifting freely now, images rising and falling without effort. This is the heart of a calming, relaxing story designed to carry you gently towards sleep. Ahead, the track straightens, leading toward the old station at the far end of Black Hollow. Few living souls ever reached that place, even when the town was whole. It served as a threshold, a place of arrival and departure, where futures were decided in silence. As the engine hums steadily, allow your body to sink deeper into rest. Let your breathing slow, your mind soften. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Asterisk. The air inside the carriage feels even softer now, as if the train itself is aware that the night is deepening and rest is close at hand. The steady motion continues, unbroken and patient, and the sound of the wheels has become a gentle undercurrent rather than a distinct rhythm. Your body responds naturally, sinking further into stillness, guided by the calm flow of this bedtime story. Outside the window, the forest gradually gives way to open land. Low hills roll past, their silhouettes smoothed by fog and moonlight. In the distance, faint outlines of structures begin to appear. These are not homes, but places of waiting. Old depots, storage sheds, signal towers standing silent, their purpose long fulfilled. Black Hollow's final station lies ahead. This station was built later than the others, when the town still believed in its future. It was meant to connect Black Hollow to the wider world, to opportunity and escape. But as industry faltered and tragedy struck, fewer trains arrived. Fewer left. Eventually, only one remained. The last train through Black Hollow became a symbol, though no one spoke of it aloud. It carried those who could not let go, and those who were not yet ready to leave. It ran quietly, without advertisement, slipping through the hollow at night, unseen by most. As the train approaches the station, lanterns along the platform begin to glow one by one. Their light is steady and welcoming, not harsh. The platform itself is long and narrow, bordered by stone walls softened by moss. A wooden bench sits beneath a roof supported by heavy beams, carved with initials and dates. Names of lovers, names of children, promises made in passing. The train slows, and for the first time, you feel the possibility of stopping. The doors remain closed, but a sense of anticipation stirs among the passengers. Some sit straighter, some bow their heads, lost in thought. This is not an ending, but a moment of recognition. Through the glass, you see figures waiting on the platform. They are faint, almost translucent, yet clearly defined. These are the ones who chose to leave, who boarded earlier trains and carried Black Hollow with them into distant cities and new lives. They return here only in memory, drawn by anniversaries, by regrets, by love that never fully faded. The train does not open its doors to them. Instead, it passes slowly, allowing glances, acknowledgements, quiet understanding. There is no anger in this exchange, only acceptance of different paths taken. Beyond the station, the track curves toward the mountain, climbing gently. This was never meant for heavy freight. It was built for something else, something symbolic, a final ascent. Few ever spoke of it, yet everyone sensed its purpose. Inside the carriage, the ghosts begin to settle again. They have seen what they needed to see. The station falls away behind you, its lanterns shrinking into the mist until they are indistinguishable from stars. You notice how peaceful the atmosphere feels now. The tension that once clung to the hollow has loosened its hold. The past has been acknowledged, its weight shared and soft. The engine hums steadily as it climbs, and the night grows quieter still. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your thoughts drift in freely. This relaxing story is guiding you gently effortlessly toward sleep. As the train continues its ascent, the fog thickens. Once more, wrapping the world in softness, you are held here, safe and untroubled, carried by memory and motion. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The climb becomes gentler now, almost imperceptible, as though the mountain itself has decided to ease the way. The train no longer strains against the slope. Instead, it glides, cradled by the night. Outside the windows, the fog grows luminous, glowing faintly with reflected moonlight, turning the world into a soft, boundless dream. Inside the carriage, the lamps dim to their lowest glow. Shadows stretch long and calm across the floor, blending with the quiet presence of the passengers. No one speaks. No one needs to. The journey has brought them to a place beyond memory's sharp edges, where understanding rests without effort. Ahead, the track narrows, guiding the train toward a high ridge overlooking all of Black Hollow. From this height, the town appears small and distant, nestled within the dark folds of the valley. The river is a thin ribbon of silver, the forest a single breathing mass. Everything that once felt overwhelming now seems gently contained. This was always the final purpose of the last train through Black Hollow, not escape, not punishment, but perspective. Here, the ghosts see their lives as a whole, the joy and the sorrow, the choices made under pressure, the moments of kindness that mattered more than anyone realized at the time. Regret loosens its grip, replaced by something quieter and warmer. Forgiveness, perhaps, or simply as the engine slows to its most tranquil pace, almost hovering between motion and stillness. The whistle does not sound. There is no need. The silence here is complete, yet comforting, like a deep breath held at the edge of sleep. You may feel now that your own body has grown wonderfully heavy. Your thoughts drift without direction, floating in and out like soft clouds. This bedtime story, this calming, guided sleep meditation has carried you exactly where you need to be. The train does not stop at the ridge. It never truly stops. It continues onward, beyond the places marked on any map, carrying its passengers into a peaceful continuity where time has no sharp corners. One by one, the figures in the carriage begin to fade, not vanishing, but blending into the glow, becoming part of the journey itself. Soon, there is only the gentle motion left, only the sound of rails, distant and soothing, only the sense of being held safely by the story. As the hollow disappears behind the veil of fog, allow your breathing to slow even more. Let the weight of the day dissolve completely. There is nothing left to follow, nothing left to listen for, except rest. As this chapter comes to a close, remember that Midnight Murmurs Radio is always here to guide you through peaceful nights and gentle mysteries. If this story has brought you comfort, consider subscribing or supporting the channel so these quiet journeys can continue. And now, as the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Asterisk, when the train moves again, it does so without any sense of departure. There is no jolt, no shift in weight, only the quiet understanding that the journey has entered a deeper layer of the night. The ridge fades behind you, and with it the familiar shape of Black Hollow as it once appeared to the living. What lies ahead is softer, less defined, yet filled with meaning. This is where the train travels when memory loosens its final hold. The fog outside the windows thickens, glowing faintly as though lit from within. Shapes form and dissolve slowly, never sharp enough to demand attention. Time here no longer moves in straight lines. It drifts, circling gently, like a leaf on still water. Inside the carriage, the seats feel warmer, the air calmer, infused with a sense of quiet belonging. This realm was known to the earliest settlers of the Hollow, long before coal seams were cut open and rails were laid. They spoke of it in hushed tones, calling it the in-between, a place where the land remembers everyone who has ever walked upon it. Native paths once crossed these hills, guided by stars and stories rather than engines and schedules. Those stories were never truly lost. They settled into the soil, waiting dot. As the train glides forward, you sense the presence of guides, though none appear before you. They are felt rather than seen, like a hand steadying the night itself. The passengers seem lighter now, their outlines less defined, as though the train is gently unthreading them from the weight of their former lives. Outside, the landscape begins to transform. The forest becomes taller, older, its trees impossibly wide, their branches woven together overhead. Leaves glow softly, illuminated by no visible source. You hear water again, but this time it flows upward, mist rising instead of falling, carrying with it fragments of voices long since forgotten. These voices speak of beginnings, of first winters survived, of harvest festivals held under uncertain skies, of promises made to the land and sometimes broken in the name of survival. Black Hollow was never just a town. It was a convergence of hopes, ambitions, and quiet bargains struck with the mountains themselves. The train passes through a clearing where faint figures stand in a slow, respectful circle. They do not look toward the carriage. Their attention is focused inward, on a small fire that burns without consuming its fuel. This is a remembrance gathering, a ritual older than the rails, meant to honor those who never returned from the woods, the mines, the river. The fire's light reaches you even through the fog, warming your chest, easing your breath. You feel no pull to join them. You are a witness only, carried safely onward. This is a relaxing story, a peaceful ghost story meant to cradle your mind, not burden Italiano. The train understands this. It keeps its distance, respectful and calm. As the clearing fades, the passengers settle deeper into their seats. Some close their eyes. Others gaze outward with serene acceptance. Their individual stories are dissolving into something shared, something quieter. Here, no one is defined by a single moment or mistake. The engine hum is barely audible now, more vibration than sound. The rails beneath you no longer appear solid, yet the motion remains steady. There is trust here, the kind that comes only after long endurance. You may notice your own thoughts thinning, becoming less distinct. This is natural. This guided sleep meditation woven into a bedtime story is guiding you toward rest, just as the train guides its passengers onward. Ahead, A soft glow spreads through the fog, neither station nor destination, but a threshold. The train approaches it slowly, deliberately, honoring what must be remembered before passing through. Let your breathing slow once more. Feel the gentle forward motion. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The glow ahead grows softer as the train approaches, spreading through the fog like dawn that has chosen not to wake the world. There is no edge to it, no boundary where light ends and darkness begins. Instead, everything blends, inviting you deeper into stillness. The train moves with quiet certainty, as though it has traveled this path countless times before, guided by something older than memory. Inside the carriage, the last traces of weight seem to lift from the passengers. Their forms grow more translucent, yet never fragile. They are becoming lighter, not by leaving something behind, but by being fully seen at last. You sense this without needing words. In this place, understanding does not arrive through explanation. It arrives through calm recognition. The landscape beyond the windows shifts. Again, you now see Black Hollow as it existed before any name was given to it. Dense forest stretches in every direction, untouched by rail or road. The river runs clear and wide, reflecting a sky heavy with stars. Smoke rises from a small settlement near the water, its fire carefully tended. These are the first people who called this land home, living in balance with its rhythms, listening to its warnings. The train does not intrude upon this vision. It passes quietly, respectfully, its presence acknowledged only by a subtle stirring of leaves. You sense the grief that came later, when balance was disrupted, when the land was asked to give more than it could without consequence. That grief lingers here, not as anger, but as a reminder. As the train glides onward, the scene changes once more. You see the early days of Black Hollow's town, buildings rising with hope and urgency. Immigrants arrive from distant shores, carrying languages, songs, and customs that mingle in the narrow streets. Church bells ring, market stalls fill the air with the smell of bread and smoke. This was a time of promise, when the future still seemed generous. The train passes through these moments without stopping, allowing you to observe without attachment. You see joy and hardship intertwined, each shaping the other. You see how small choices, made quietly, ripple outward through decades. The train does not judge these choices, it simply remembers. Inside the carriage, the passengers appear serene. They have reached the deepest layer of their journey, where secrets are not exposed for punishment, but held gently with compassion. Some of those secrets involve silence, warnings ignored, voices dismissed, lives deemed expendable in the pursuit of progress. These truths settle into the air, acknowledged at last. The sound of the rails has nearly faded, replaced by a low, steady hum that resonates through your chest. It is deeply calming, like a lullaby without melody. Your breathing slows to match it, each inhale and exhale smooth and unforced. Ahead, the glow begins to dim, not disappearing, but softening into something even more peaceful. The train is nearing a place of release, though release here does not mean an ending. It means a rest You may feel your awareness drifting, your thoughts loosening their grip. This is the heart of a calming sleep story where the mind is allowed to wander and settle without effort. As the train glides forward into the softened light, the last sharp outlines of history dissolve. What remains is a gentle continuity, a shared presence that needs no name. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The train continues, though the sensation of movement is now little more than a gentle awareness, like floating on calm water beneath a night sky. There is no sense of distance being covered, no urgency to arrive. The glow around the carriage has softened into a velvety darkness threaded with faint light, as though the stars themselves have drawn closer to watch in silence. Inside, the air feels warmer, deeper, carrying a subtle resonance that hums through the seats and floor. This is the resting layer of the journey, where even memory begins to relax its hold. The passengers no longer sit as individuals. Their presence has become collective, a quiet harmony of stories interwoven so closely they can no longer be separated. Outside the windows, the land shifts into a dreamlike version of Black Hollow, familiar yet transformed. Hills roll gently without sharp edges. Trees sway though no wind is visible. The river flows in slow, luminous arcs, its surface reflecting not the sky, but moments from countless lives. You glimpse hands held in farewell, lanterns lifted against the dark, faces turned upward in hope, then in acceptance. The train moves through these reflections without disturbance. It does not create ripples. It simply passes, acknowledging each moment with calm respect. This is not a place of judgment or regret. It is a place where everything that once felt unfinished is allowed to rest. A soft tone rises within the carriage, barely audible, like a distant choir humming a single note. It is not a sound meant to be heard with the ears, but felt with the body. Your breathing naturally aligns with it, slow and steady, each breath deeper than the last. Muscles soften, thoughts drift like leaves, settling on still water. This is where the train carries those who lingered longest, those whose lives ended without closure. They are not asked to explain themselves here. They are simply welcomed. You sense this in the way the space feels open, unburdened, free of expectation. Beyond the windows, the forest dissolves into light, then reforms again, each time simpler, more abstract. Shapes lose their names. The story becomes sensation rather than sequence. This is intentional. The train knows that sleep comes not through understanding, but through surrender. You may feel now as though you are both inside the carriage and drifting just above it, watching without effort. This gentle separation is natural, a sign that rest is near. The guided sleep meditation woven into this bedtime story is guiding you exactly where you need to be. The train does not announce its progress. There are no signals here, no stations, only a continuous, soothing forward motion that feels like being carried in strong, patient arms. Gradually, the glow around the carriage begins to fade, replaced by a deep, comforting darkness. Not empty, not cold, simply Quiet, the kind of quiet that holds you without asking anything in return. As the darkness deepens, the soft hum remains, steady and reassuring. It wraps around you, around the train, around every story it carries. There is nothing left to follow, nothing left to resolve. Let your breathing slow even more. Allow your thoughts to drift freely without shape or direction. As this part of the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The darkness surrounding the train deepens, not suddenly, but with the patience of night settling over a long familiar landscape. It feels vast and gentle, like a quiet lake under starlight, holding everything without effort. The train remains present within it. Though its edges soften, its form less distinct, as if it, too, is learning how to rest. Inside the carriage, there is no longer a clear sense of seats or walls. The space has opened, becoming more like a shared breath than a structure. The passengers are still here, yet they no longer feel separate from the air, the hum, or the slow passage forward. They have reached a calm that does not require awareness. Outside, if it can still be called outside, the last images of Black Hollow dissolve completely. No town, no forest, no river. Only a slow, drifting texture of darkness and light, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat heard from far away. This is the place beyond memory, where even stories are allowed to sleep. The train's hum grows softer, blending seamlessly with your own breathing, in and out, unhurried, unforced. Each breath feels fuller, deeper, as though the night itself is breathing with you. There is no need to follow this story closely now. It is carrying you, even if you let go. In this quiet layer of the journey, the train serves only one purpose: to hold what remains until it no longer needs holding. The ghosts of Black Hollow have already loosened their final attachments. They are not disappearing. They are simply becoming part of the calm that surrounds everything. You may notice that your thoughts have grown less distinct, less urgent. Images rise and fade without demanding attention. Sensations soften. The boundary between listening and drifting blurs. This is the threshold of deep rest, where the mind stops trying to understand and begins to trust. Somewhere within the darkness, a faint warmth spreads, subtle and reassuring. It is the warmth of belonging, of being exactly where you are meant to be. The train moves within it, carried rather than moving, guided rather than guiding. There is no sound now but the softest echo of motion, like waves brushing against a distant shore. Even that begins to fade, replaced by a profound stillness that feels alive rather than empty. This is the stillness that follows long journeys when nothing more is required. If you are still aware of the story, allow that awareness to rest gently, like a hand placed over the heart. If it drifts away, let it. The train will continue without effort, and you with it. As this part of the story fades, there is nothing left to imagine, nothing left to follow. Only rest remains. Allow yourself to drift into a peaceful, deep sleep. Asterisk, the train is barely a train. Now, it is more a sensation than a shape, a gentle awareness drifting through a vast, quiet night. If there was ever a sound to mark its passing, it has softened into something too subtle to name. Motion still exists, but only as reassurance, like the slow rise and fall of a sleeping chest. There is no longer a clear boundary between inside and outside. The carriage, the passengers, the darkness, and the calm have blended into a single, unbroken presence. Nothing presses in, nothing pulls away. Everything rests together, suspended in a deep and patient stillness. The last remnants of individual memory loosen their hold. Names fade, faces blur into warmth rather than features. The ghosts of Black Hollow no longer need to remember how they arrived here or why they stayed so long. Their journey has brought them to a place where remembering is no longer a task. If you listen closely, you may sense a faint rhythm, slower than breath, slower even than thought. It is the rhythm of rest itself. The land that once held struggle now holds silence. The mountain that once demanded labor now offers shelter. The hollow has exhaled, and in that exhale, everything finds its place. The train drifts through this stillness without direction, without destination. It does not circle back. It does not move forward. It simply remains, carrying peace the way it once carried coal and people and promises. This is its final transformation, not into nothing, but into quiet continuity. Your own awareness grows lighter now. You may feel as though you are floating or sinking or not moving at all. Each sensation is correct. There is no wrong way to rest here. The story no longer asks for your attention. It does not need to be followed. It is already complete. Thoughts may still appear, soft and indistinct, like distant lights seen through heavy fog. Let them pass without engagement. They will fade on their own, just as the last echoes of the train's hum are fading now. This is the deepest layer of the journey, a place without edges, a place without time, a place where even the idea of a ghost loses meaning because nothing is left unfinished. The night holds everything gently. The train holds nothing at all. As this part of the story dissolves into silence, there is nothing left to do. No ending to wait for, no final image to hold on to. Only sleep remains. Allow yourself to drift into a peaceful, uninterrupted rest. Asterisk, there is no clear moment when the train completes its journey, because completion here feels the same as continuation. The quiet that surrounds everything has grown so deep and steady that even the idea of movement has softened into rest. The last train through Black Hollow no longer travels through places. It travels through sleep itself. The darkness is warm and vast, like a night sky without stars, holding you without weight. If there was once a sense of direction, it has gently dissolved. There is nothing ahead to anticipate and nothing behind to recall. Everything simply is. The train has become a memory of comfort rather than an object, a familiar presence that no longer needs form. The ghosts it carried have settled completely, not as separate beings, but as calm woven into the night. Their stories have been honored. Their journeys have ended in peace. Black Hollow no longer feels like a place marked by loss or sorrow. It feels like a breath finally released after being held for too long. The mountains rest. The river rests. The land remembers without pain. You may notice that your awareness is now very faint, like the last light in a window just before sleep takes over. Thoughts drift away before they can fully form. Sensations blur into warmth and ease. The guided sleep meditation woven through this bedtime story has done its quiet work. There is no final image to hold on to, no sound to listen for. Even the echo of the train's home has faded into silence. All that remains is the deep, steady presence of rest. If you are still listening, let these words pass through you without effort. If you are already drifting, allow the story to continue without you. It will not be interrupted by your sleep. It was always meant to lead you here. Midnight Murmurs Radio is honored to guide you through peaceful nights and gentle mysteries like this one. If these stories bring you comfort, consider subscribing or supporting the channel, so more calming journeys can continue to find you whenever you need them. And now, with nothing left to follow and nowhere left to go, allow yourself to sleep deeply and peacefully. As the story fades completely, allow yourself to drift into a calm, restful sleep.